Okay, welcome everyone. This will be a slightly new video format. I'm again joined by my brother Seb, but we are going to be engaged in a spiritual converse and dialectic. The purpose of this video is to introduce to all of you the paradigm of conscious development. If you are on the path of spirituality, of self-development, if you are pursuing the great work, you of course need a map. We all need a map, a diagram, to explore the journey that we are on. If you try to do a work without a map, without a clear diagram, without a clear vision, without, in a sense, guidance from above, right? A higher structure which you can consult, you risk self-delusion. It is a very real and pernicious trap. If you ever try to act without a clear pathway, and some order or law which measures where you are, some higher authority which, in a sense, can truly validate what you are doing. You risk self-delusion. It is possible completely independently, but very hard, and all odds are probably against you. But there are exceptions, of course. Now, what is consciousness? Well, hopefully you have some idea watching this video. If you don't, this is probably the wrong video and watch the other ones first. But you should understand that consciousness is undefinable. It is like asking what is being, right? I can define what an apple is because there are things which are more basic than an apple, which I can use to define an apple. But there is nothing more basic than being. There is nothing which you can reduce consciousness to. It is the ground to which everything reduces. You should also understand that consciousness is right here and now. Consciousness is presence. It is pure being. It is infinite. It is absolutely total, encompassing every aspect of our experience. Hmm. But now, when speaking of consciousness, we need a very precise language. Because one might say, I've had a conscious experience. I'm enlightened, right? I'm enlightened. I've had an enlightenment experience. I've had a mystical experience. Or one might say, I am very low consciousness. I've woken up. I can't think properly. I'm very low conscious. Now, of course, we need to be subtle. There are natural cycles and rhythms to consciousness. Even enlightened people sleep, do they not? Is an enlightened sage less conscious when he or she is asleep? That's the wrong question entirely. So you have a state of consciousness, you have a stage of consciousness, and we might also speak of tiers of consciousness. Let us firstly think about what is the state of consciousness. This requires an entire video, an entire separate course, honestly. And I'm going to bring in actually Brother Seb in a second to talk about this. He might be able to explain this even better than I. But state of consciousness is everything. What you are right now, watching this video, when you are meditating, doing breath work, exercising, it is all a state of consciousness. Your state of consciousness is not just the state of your mind. It is not just whether you are awake or sleeping, high energy, low energy, angry, sad. It is the complete synthetic unity and singularity of all of that. Your body, your energy, your bioenergetic frequency, your mental energetic frequency, your brain state. Literally the state of your brain waves, the frequency, the resonance, the pattern, your physical structure, your physical state, your hormonal state, your emotional state. Do you see where I'm coming from? Your brain chemistry, your gut chemistry, what you are actively looking at, thinking about, your focus, your spiritual state, the environment that you're in also affects your state, and so on and so on. That is your state of consciousness. It is a composite of mind and matter. There's no distinction. There's no distinction between body and mind. It's all one unity. And really, that is what we mean by the word soul. The word soul speaks about the entire unity of yourself in all its dimensions. Hmm. Yes, I mean, I wonder if Brother Seb has anything to add here to explain what state of consciousness is.
Yes, one point here, which is imagine your state of consciousness as your immediate and direct bubble of experience right now.
Hmm.
If you take a step back, you can actually perceive your experience you are experiencing right now. Begin to relate that back to state of consciousness. It's not just state. People will speak about state throughout their lives, throughout your life. But where it gets deeper and more important for us is when we start to frame things with and as consciousness. This is more inclusive. This is, as Faizan said, more complete. Your consciousness is total. So that's how I invite you to imagine your state of consciousness.
Hmm. Yeah, this is a nice apt summary. State of consciousness is the totality of everything that you are experiencing right now, and we mean in every dimension, right? So we're not just talking about your mental state, it's all consciousness. Literally, the how your left little finger feels on your hand, it's also what you're experiencing right now, it's state. Now, when you do breath work, when you change your posture, when you do exercise, when you act, when you do yoga, you do rituals, cleaning rituals, washing rituals, you pray, you eat food, you take medicine, you change your inner chemistry, change your environment, you look at something new, hear something new, put on music, smell a new odor, temperature, all of this can shift the state of your consciousness. What you are living second to second, this micro instantiation of your being is state of consciousness. Your mission in life, second to second, breath by breath, is to refine, purify, complete your state of consciousness. The entire work now in the present is state of consciousness. Because everything that you can think and experience is going to be filtered through your state. Right? Do you hear this? State is the most important thing. Opening up and enlarging your state of consciousness is the most important thing you must do to experience more and to access truth. The degree to which you access truth is determined by your state of consciousness. And what you need is to experience states of consciousness which exceed your stage. However you are living now, how do you change? You experience something beyond that. Let's say, you live in a dump, right? You live in a bad environment. Maybe it's not your fault. You just live in a bad environment. There's bad people around you, low energy, bad family, toxic relationships. What you need to do is to experience, at least for one day, a good environment. You need to be clean, you need to be safe, you need to be protected, be away from dangerous people and harmful things. You have to experience that state because inside of that state, you will literally access a cleaner way of thinking. In a new state of consciousness, you can think higher. In an impure state, you will have impure thoughts. This is why you cannot think your way out of your problem, because you will be literally limited by your current state. If you want to move out of that, you have to first step into a higher state, and then from the higher state, you can experience and access higher consciousness, which can then come back and change your actual life. So accessing higher states of consciousness is your priority, which is both right now in how you live, your attention, your breath work, but then also gradually improving things like food, sleep, nutrition, exercise, really doing life work, which never ends. It never ends, no matter how advanced you are. You will have deeper insights from God, teaching you how to live more and more correctly, in more and more purity. And honestly, I think, what I've said here, it's kind of everything that Seb is doing on his channel. So I think SJC, Seb Jones's channel, is the resource for this. It's the resource. Go and watch those videos to understand what state is and how to improve it and the necessity of that. I mean, just before we move on to stage, is there anything you wanted to further say about that, Seb?
No, I think this covers it nicely, actually.
Yes, great. It's a good duality because state of consciousness is all about embodiment. And that's what Seb specializes in, what he's doing on his channel. Now, stage of consciousness, it's more theoretical. It's more abstract and systematic, which is what we're focusing more on this channel. Now, what is stage? There's many wrong ways to define this, and I'm going to give you the right way, but really pay attention and maybe rewatch this a few times. Okay. Your consciousness, and in fact the entire world, is created. It is generated. Let's actually work through this together. Do you agree with me, Seb? Reality is generated.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. But there's nothing but the present, right?
Correct.
Therefore, reality is generated right now.
Yes, it is generated right now, top down from God, as God.
Yes. Which means every single moment, reality is regenerated. It's continuously regenerated. It's like a TV screen, right? You think there's a screen, but no, what's actually happening is every single second, like the light is re-flashing, right? Like a computer. Every second it's redoing the program. So it looks like it's staying the same, but it's only because the pixels are just redoing the same thing.
Yes, I'd
Of
like to
course,
argue that, yeah, this is what you want to do, man. You want to, yes, become suspicious of the continuity of reality. Start to
mm,
peek behind how consciousness just immaculately regenerates in front of you, before you. Get curious about this and wonder, what is this persistent illusion? Why is it so persistent? Why does it feel so real? This is the way we start to get at
mm,
this.
yes. Okay. And then that leads to the answer to the whole thing. What is stage? What is a thing? So I see my hand. My hand is my hand. It's being regenerated so um, consistently that I think that, I mean, I have a hand, right? I have this thing which is a hand, and it's like it doesn't change. What this means is that reality has a memory, and the hand exists inside the memory, the mind of reality, really the mind of God. And the idea of having a hand is so true that God creates the hand every single second. Some things aren't true, right? A fly in my room is not truth. It has a truth, but it comes and it goes. God gives it life and God takes the life away. So those things which last longer and seem more durable are more true in the mind of God. They're more embedded in the memory of reality. So reality is regenerating itself. God is recreating all of creation with every breath. But some things are recreated in the same way. That is what we mean by essence. Essence, structure, stage, that is it. So what your stage, or before that, the, anything you want to say further about that, Seb?
Yes, just that again, that's a great point you make about how some things are actually more real and some things are less real in the mind of God. That is a whole exercise for you to contemplate that. I just wanted to emphasize that one.
Yes. This is the idea of hierarchy. There's a hierarchy of existence, and it's all about what is more true. And ultimately, only God is truth. God is truth. God is reality. But this is actually a fallacy that people say that, okay, everything is false. Yes, from the perspective that God is absolutely real. But you have to realize that everything is relatively real, but it's not equally relative. Huge, huge fallacy. Just because everything is relative does not mean that everything is absolutely relative. In fact, that which is relative is relatively relative. Its own relativity is relative. So if you understand this true relativity theory, it actually means that things are absolute, relatively.
Mm.
Like Seb gets this immediately, but just keep rewatching this and eventually you'll get it. It might take 10 years, but this is very important. But if you at least understand that, there's degrees of absolutity and relativity, what this stage of consciousness is, it's like the absolute structure that your consciousness has, right? I'm a man, right? I'm a young man. This fact, this truth, is very real relative to my consciousness. In fact, it's basically absolute
Mm.
relative to my consciousness. Hence, I stay as a man. I stay my age, and even when my age changes, it's still very continuous as it changes. Right? In the same way that you understand that my body is my body, it's changing, but it's changing very slowly and continuously because it's very true in the mind of God. That's exactly how your stage of consciousness works. It's the macro pattern, the baseline structure, the fundamental form which your consciousness snaps back into. Like a spring, the state of consciousness is pulling the spring. So you can access a higher state of consciousness. You can resonate a higher frequency. But the pattern of nature means that it's going to snap back. So yes, your immediate work in every moment to every moment is to access higher states of consciousness. Yes, you should look out for, events, higher teachers, higher consultants, higher coaches, higher environments and spaces and rituals to access deeper levels of consciousness. But really, the real work is to transform your stage of consciousness. It's not just to jump higher, it's to literally climb to a higher step. Because upon the next step, you can jump higher than you can jump now. In fact, if you climb up 4 steps, a tiny jump will do more than a huge jump now. So more powerful than seeking an enlightenment experience now is actually to change the stage of your consciousness. Even though the higher spiritual state is going to feel like it's doing more, a very small increase in the stage of consciousness is actually doing more. So this is the real work. But because the idea of a stage of consciousness is very, very deep, it's a deep structure inside of you, only a deep work can transform this. Deep work, most people have no idea what that even is. Hence why most people don't really change in life. They stay the same. They change for one day, they come back. Right? They join the gym on New Year's. 2 months later, they're back. They go through micro-fat diets, they're back to where they were. Right? This is the story of 99% of people. For this reason, they're going through states but not stages.
Yes, and another thing to be aware of here is how even if your average spiritual person is aware of state and how the state is important and state changes, a lot of the time they what will go completely over their head is the fact that there are stages
Mm.
of consciousness. They are actually still ignorant of the possibility that they can raise what we could call their baseline higher because of stage, not state.
Mm. This is a very good point. Actually, most of contemporary spirituality, and in fact, even what most people understand from religion, it's all about state. People want to go to church or mosque and have a higher state. They're looking for a spiritual experience. Most people have no idea about stage of consciousness. But as we're telling you, really, honestly, state is not that important. I've told you why it's important. The only reason why it's important is to access a higher level of thinking, to access higher insights, so to bring it down. Do you hear this? The only reason why it's important to have a higher state is so to increase the stage. But if you're not doing that and you're just searching for spiritual highs all the time, you're actually making no progress. So you can literally be having an enlightenment experience every day. You can take, like DMT every day and have an enlightenment experience, but you're not actually going to do anything. You're like just jumping up and down in the same state again and again, but not going anywhere. Yes.
However, one thing to add here is if you are able to do something called integration, where you integrate these higher states as you jump each time, even if
Mm,
you just integrate a small amount, that is better off than never raising your state to begin with. So don't be afraid to raise your state. And actually, it's necessary. We could say that awakening, it doesn't even happen at all unless you actually break through into a higher state. So hold
mm.
the paradox in your mind as Faizan explains the importance of stage, but also I emphasize state as well.
Yes, this is good nuance. And in fact, like jumping up and down, it will have a benefit. It makes your legs stronger, right? You get stronger, so you can jump a bit higher. So you will make experience, you will make improvement. But honestly, if you just understand that this state and this stage, there's a micro work, there's a macro work, you're doing really well. And you're far, far way ahead of most people. Okay, but now, last thing, tiers of consciousness. So you can move through stages of consciousness, but now there are some stages which are so fundamentally different, literally mind blowing. Like literally, they literally blow your mind apart. They absolutely blast your ego apart. There are some shifts in consciousness you can experience which completely change the way that you see the world. Completely. That is a paradigm shift. That is what we might call a tier shift. Hence, you might speak of someone who is enlightened, which again has a very, very obscure, esoteric, fanciful meaning. People obscure it actually as an ego trap. But enlightenment is actually something very real. It can be experienced, can be attained. There are enlightened people in the world, right? In Christianity and Islam, they call this sainthood. The word sainthood in Western religion equals the idea of enlightenment in Eastern religion, like Buddhism and Hinduism. And there's a real thing, right? There are saints, there are enlightened mystics. It's a real thing. It's less real now, unfortunately. But there were many, many people in history who were enlightened, and there still are. That's a tier shift. And there's actually many, many tier shifts. It's not just unenlightened, enlightened. There's degrees of enlightenment. There's a whole hierarchy of possibilities. But what you need to understand now is that there is a stage shift which is literally waking up. It's like the difference between being a baby and being born. It's like you open your eyes. It's completely different. Hmm. Any further words about that, Seb?
Yes, just that enlightenment when you experience it, which you will if you continue this work and you are earnest, is the most real thing. It- what you will come to grasp more and more is that we could even say enlightenment is being ultra sober. It is pure sobriety. You actually
Hmm.
see clearly and lucidly to a terrifying extent. So not only can you right now do we invite your mind to be so open to this idea of you literally experiencing enlightenment, but understand it's shockingly clear you'll be shockingly sober. And I mean that almost with a capital S, in that you've never really been sober your entire life unless you've had enlightened consciousness. It's a cleansing of the the doors of your perception. And yes, you will see clearly.
Yes, beautiful points. Yes, there's a prayer in Arabic. It goes, Allahumma arina al-ashya'a kama hi, which literally says that, oh God, show me things as they are. And that is the utmost prayer. Right? People are asking for, God, give me wings, give me $1 billion. It doesn't matter, man. The greatest thing which God can give you is literally just to show you truth.
Mm.
The greatest possible thing, as Brother said, right now, the greatest possible thing that you can be gifted with in your hands, the greatest thing which can happen to you is just to have the doors of perception opened and to see reality. That is the answer to all of your problems. Yes. Now to move on, the next maybe 10, 20 minutes, we're going to give you a model. This is a model, it's called spiral dynamics, which I'm not going to give you. I'm not going to give you that. I'm going to give you a new ontological dynamics model. As I said, you need to have a map. It's not perfect, it's not exhaustive, but this is a very useful typology for levels of consciousness. The spiral dynamics model is really a part of sociology. It was a model of how societies evolve, which has pros and cons, good things in it. There's some flawed things in it as well, but it was really a model about society and an individual's relationship to society. You can check that out if you want, but I actually would not recommend it because it's going to distract you and maybe taint your mind a bit. But because, I'll tell you why, it's because it's a materialistic paradigm. It believes that society exists in the world and that the human being exists inside a society, right? If you believe that, you shouldn't even be watching this video. Or maybe you can if you're open-minded. But no, the individual, I, am more fundamental than society. It is I, in my transcendental ego, which generates society, and not the other way around. Hence, a true ontological dynamics, right, which really speaks about consciousness. This is actually not speaking about consciousness, it's speaking about a very limited perception of consciousness, which you might call personality or cognition. But a model of true consciousness, in fact, treats society as a manifestation of consciousness. And so these different stages of societal development, in fact, accord to different levels of conscious development. A certain consciousness gives rise to a certain society. This is the idea of spirit or singularity or Geist in especially Platonic philosophy, similar to what Hegel was doing, who saw all of society and history as a manifestation of spirit, right? Not as spirit in society, but society as spirit. Now, before we even go into it, you must understand that consciousness is cyclic. You're going to go through the same stages again and again. However, each time you make the loop, you actually go up. You will repeat the same stage at a higher frequency, like the notes of an octave. If you play a piano, you go from C, D, E, F, G, B, A, G, A, B, C, right? C and C. But the next C is one octave up. It is twice the frequency. That is what is happening. You're going to go through the same stages at higher and higher frequencies, and you're going to continuously integrate these states and experiences and stages. Hence, in a sense, you can go down, right? You attain a high consciousness, and you use this high systematical consciousness to work on your ego. But this moving down is actually a moving up, right? You go from like 1, 2, 3 back to 1. It looks like you're going back down from 3 to 1, but as I said, you're going 1, 2, 3 up one level. The new one is actually higher than the previous one. So reality is cyclic. 7 days in a week, cycles around and round and round, 365 days in a year, it cycles around. Right? We know this. All of reality is cyclical. So actually conscious development is also cyclical, integrating the same at higher levels. Moreover, you need to understand that this is a very, very subtle thing. It's not just a straight line going da 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 da, A, B, C, I'm enlightened. This hierarchy is not linear. It's not just a single line. Moreover, it is not a tree. It's not just multiple lines branching out. It is actually an infinite, self-replicating fractal. And it's really, really infinite. If you study maths, you know that there are different levels of infinity. This is really infinite. It's really complex, extremely subtle. Hence, don't ever delude yourself into thinking that you're going through some linear hierarchy and you are now enlightened. It's far more complex than that. It is like a circle, it's like a sphere, a cone, a spiral. If you can see these different pictures and integrate them, you're doing well. Okay, now we'll speak about these different levels and stages of consciousness. We'll start with stage red, the first real level and stage of consciousness that we experience, especially in modern society. You're born, you have an ego identity. What are you? You really begin in this stage called red, which is a stage of will. It's a stage when you are first conscious as an individual in a tribe, in a society. When you think about it, most people in the world identify with their group. They worship this group mentality. In the past was definitely about your ethnic group. You're born into a tribe. Your tribe is your god. You worship your tribe. You live and die for your tribe. Now the tribes have become more complex. There are countries, there are religions, even musicians, right? Like being a Swiftie or whatever, it's your tribe. You're worshipping that thing, the idol of your tribe. Ultimately, this level of consciousness is like a will to action, the will to power, as Nishi described it. And don't say this is bad. It's a necessary level of consciousness. It's that consciousness, but before this, you aren't conscious in a sense. You're just part of nature. You're an animal, you get shot through the neck and hunted and you die. And there's nothing wrong with that. In this consciousness, you're like, no, you're not going to shoot me in the head. I'm going to fight back. I have ego. I have survival. I'm going to fight. I'm going to fight for my society. So this can be a destructive consciousness where ultimately you want to kill and destroy other tribes. You want to fight for your god and kill the other fake gods. As you can see, this is actually probably most of humanity. Most people throughout all of human history, including today, are in this level. They're ultimately worshipping an idol of their ego, of whatever, their caste, their society. And before it was a more destructive physical war, now it's more of a mental economic war. But think of the warrior, think of someone like Genghis Khan. They really exemplify this. Ancient tribes, even ancient kingdoms, tribal warfare, which is unfortunately occurring all over the world. Even here, like in England, you see tribal warfare in the streets. It's all tribal warfare. Hmm. So that's stage red, and again, I'll see if Seb has any questions or comments about this.
Yes, just one question, which is how can our listener right now locate or identify this red willful stage or yeah, stage within themselves? How
Excellent.
can they recognize
Follow
it?
your values. Like follow what you want. Be very honest with yourself. So you have to do it in a locked room, not just physically, but mentally. You need to have a completely non-judgmental space and follow what you worship. Identify what your God is. And don't just say, I worship God. If you worship God, you'd be enlightened right now. You'd be a saint. We all have, unfortunately, a false idol that we are worshipping. What's that? What is it really? If you keep going there, you're going to get to a thing. Maybe it's power or it's money. Go one step further. Why do you want that? Ultimately, there's going to be some type of ego figure at the head of it. You want to gain power in this hierarchy. That hierarchy that you're ascending, that is this. Or if you simply know your group that you identify with, you know, even better, right? People in a certain country might be genociding another country or whatever because of this. Because they're so fixed in their group mentality that they will literally dehumanize anything else outside of that. The problem is it's very hard to see this. You're going to have so many ego traps to morally justify your position. So a huge, huge trap is and this is the thing, don't think you're beyond this. Because many, many intelligent people are in this stage, whom we see in the media, right? People you wouldn't expect are suddenly just going crazy. It's because we all are in this stage in a sense. A deep part of the human brain is just red. It sees red. Hmm. But otherwise, let's move to the next stage. So in a sense, an individual, the worst side of us is red. The worst part of us is red. What's good in most people is actually this next stage. If the first is about this ethnic, this tribal, religious, political conflict, if it's about the tribe, stage blue is about society. This is when you can acknowledge that there are different groups. There are different group identities, and you can acknowledge that they all must exist under a higher identity. So you might even still have a group identity, but you can look beyond that. This is stage blue. This is where the idea of order dominates, the idea of harmony and cooperation. This is the city. The city is held together by stage blue consciousness. Society, government, having hospitals and police and going to school is all blue. This is when that thing you worship is no longer a very physical group. It's an abstract idea of a group called law and order, called government. If you think about it, most people speak about society, but they're not speaking about the literal parliament or White House. They're not speaking about the prime minister or president. They're merely a figurehead who represents the idea of society. Most people are worshipping society. They go to work out of service to society. It's when your ego self identifies with society. This is a higher level of development because rather than clinging onto something physical, you are clinging onto something abstract, which is very important development of consciousness. This is exemplified by this idea of a higher society, even like an empire. And we still live in an empire ultimately, like the Roman Empire. All Western countries worship the idea of Rome, do they not? We all worship Rome as an idea. We want to be like the Roman Empire, have this huge central infrastructure which unifies people, offers a safe space. You've got a good government and police force to enforce law and order, and inside of that you can live life. It's the American dream, right, which occurs inside of this structure. This is blue. This is needed to fold this individual will, which can be aggressive and violent, into this higher collective harmony. This is very important. And to be blue means to really come into service, to come into self-sacrifice, service. It follows the idea of honor, where you will die for something higher than yourself. You would die for your country, or you would die for a higher ideal, for freedom. So this is a good stage of consciousness and is a higher level to be. And I want you to understand that even though it's the second one we've spoken about, most people are red. They're held together by a higher principle, but they're not fully blue. People are striving to be blue. So being 100% blue is really good work, actually, which we should strive to do.
Yes, and don't underestimate the importance of blue. Blue is actually, in a certain sense, it's everything. It
Mm.
really is the healthy person, the healthy, developed, a well-adjusted person who has, yes, like laid a really important foundation in life. And also, if you are familiar with spiral dynamics, that model, yes, I want to point out something that you'll see with here, which is there are differences in what we're saying.
Mm.
So if you associate some things with the spiral dynamics blue stage, notice the differences here. Notice the depth and the nuance here. I want to let you know that it's deliberate, and I also want you to contemplate the limitations of spiral dynamics and the reason why we're even walking through this. There is a reason, a deeper reason. So I thought that's worth saying.
Thank you very much. That's a good insight. And as you said, doing blue work is really important. In a sense, really grappling with the shadow, killing those parts of yourself, which could be a serial killer or a rapist or a murderer. It's all blue work. Like really being a good citizen, a good neighbor, a good student, a good teacher, doing your work well. These are good things. It's good morals and ethics. Let's say, one is the perfect neighbor, the perfect citizen, law-abiding, right? Doing really well in society, in work. They have some respect. People know they're just a good person, right? What's the next stage for that? This is stage orange, and I think this is going to really diverge in spiral dynamics. So pay attention to this very carefully. Stage blue, you worship society, but society remains as this very abstract ideal. In stage orange, you see society. You understand what society is, that it is a singularity of consciousness which imposes this hieratic, systematic structure on all the people. It's, in a sense, very mechanical. When you see society, you understand the system of society. This is very advanced. It's actually extremely advanced. Most people who can do that will be hailed as geniuses. We'll give you some examples. But because that you can see the systematic structure of society, you can actually navigate it. You can, in a sense, ascend society. Not just that, you can build micro societies. You can build systems. So every stage of consciousness, and I should have said this earlier perhaps, what it is a self-reflexivization over the previous. I exist, but I'm like, wait a minute, whoa, I exist. Oh my God, I exist. I am. I think, therefore I am. Do you see that was a self-reflexivity where when I was existing, then I actually became aware that I existed. It's a huge leap. It's a huge leap. Suddenly I'm like Descartes, I'm a philosopher. That's what's happening between these stages. You're becoming aware of the stage itself, which is a huge paradigm shift. That's why I said moving between stages is not a simple work, it's very deep. When I do that, I understand systems. Stage orange is like a very mechanical clockwork consciousness. You can build and implement systems. You self-reflexivize. What this means is you see yourself. I see myself in society. I see my work, my action, my daily routine, my economic transactions, my relationships, and boom, I'm conscious of all of that, which means that I can improve all of that. Stage orange is when you have complete mastery over your life. It's when you live the life that you want. That's stage orange. You implement perfect systems in every aspect of life. You implement systems, physically, exercise, diet, sleep, economic systems. You build your own business. You are successful financially, in relationships, in society. You're fulfilling all these dimensions of life. So, and because this is a real elevation, it's not a fake one, these people are like the real entrepreneurs. I'm not talking about sharks who make money abusing other people, which is unfortunately most of society. I mean the real entrepreneurs who make money, who make wealth, they generate wealth in a wholesome way to actually better themselves and society, right? People who have these, great green and eco companies and stuff, genius level entrepreneurs, genius scientists who are doing real discoveries to improve society, who are serving, genius pioneers, real actors, not doing it for power and fame, but for a love of the craft to commune something transcendental. Musicians producing real works of beauty, right? That's orange. Like Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is very, very orange. It's doing something really great for society. Maybe a bit higher. I think definitely there's higher stages in there. But to give you an idea, that's what's happening here. Any further comments, Seb, or further examples about what orange really is and looks like?
I would just raise the question for you, brother, which is, can you think of any examples to help our listener or viewer really help imagine this? Even just one.
Maybe in a sense, the best part of Tony Stark from Iron Man,
Mm.
like take the best part of him, who was a genius, an entrepreneur, but then actually wanted to, change his ways, not be an arms dealer, to create new technologies in society, to fight for society for defense. That's really orange. Someone who has genius, right, can make money and is using it for society.
Yes.
Um,
Perhaps even I know this person has become very different, but maybe even a very kind of pure and early form of Elon Musk.
yeah, I think the early idea we had of Elon Musk could be very orange. Right, clear genius, someone who's incredibly good business minded and had these early projects about wanting to go to Mars, renewable energy. That image we had of Elon Musk, that's really, really orange. The perfect orange, honestly. Great example. Even, the real transcendental actors and musicians perfecting the craft, who just, they're really good and talented, but they're doing it for higher consciousness. Hmm. Do you have any examples there, Seb?
Musicians wise, I'd probably be keen to mention someone like a Jacob Collier who
Hmm.
has real mastery over his craft, and he does it. You can actually see it if you watch any or listen to any kind of Jacob Collier, in that he does music truly. He does it from his soul, and he draws upon um, a higher things within him, using his own genius musical consciousness. So I'd say he probably falls into this bracket.
That's a good point. Again, I should have said that every stage of consciousness only sees the stage above and below it. So, if we are living in society, we're blue, we see red, right? We see Genghis Khan like, wow, that guy was crazy. He killed millions of people. Or Hitler, like, this is terrible, it's bad. We see this and we see Elon Musk, right, in the best days, like, wow, that's a good guy. I wish I could be like that. But you don't see this. You can't. You can't see beyond that. It's a mountain above the mountain.
Would we say this is a, would you describe this as a sort of tier one cutoff point?
It's true for everything, actually, right? Every stage of consciousness can only see one level above it. So the
Hmm.
amazing thing is, we're going to speak about green, but those who are orange, they're orange, but they can see green and access green. Like their higher state of consciousness is green. Someone who's blue, on the best of days, they're orange.
Hmm.
They come home, they're like, I saw this amazing seminar for self-help. I'm going to change my life. They see orange and they bring it down to blue. Or on the worst days, they're like, crap, I want to kill my boss. They've gone down to red, right? You need to kill him. This is what's happening to all of us. This is why someone who's one step above can seem so amazing because they can actually go one step above them, which is two steps above you. So when you see people who are orange on their best of days, the best work they do is something you didn't even know existed. That's why it's so amazing. Hmm. But and we're going to make more videos about all of these in much more detail. But hopefully you can see that orange is really important, and actually most of the work that we practically need to do is here. Attaining deep orange insights and really being stage orange is the best thing you can do. If you've got the basics of life down, you're a law-abiding citizen, what you need to do next is master yourself, attain complete mastery, and really have the systems of life in place. This is self-development to a large degree. This is, business, relationships, everything people are looking up on YouTube, it's all orange. So this is needed to form abstract systems and structures, economic ones, governments, institutes, research institutes, academia, science. This is all occurring over here. Now, we're just going to speak quickly through the next few stages, and we'll expand it more next time. But imagine self-reflexivizing this. This is already really high. You take this mechanical, systematic consciousness, and boom, you become aware of that. This means that you are really understanding the idea of a system. If here you see society, now you see that you see society. Do you see? I see the fact that I see
Exactly that.
society, which means I see multiple societies. I see the fact that there are people living on the other side of the world who have completely different value systems and perceptions that I do, but they're also human beings, and their viewpoint and life is equally valid to mine. This is really advanced, super, super advanced. This is forgiving thy enemy. It's really advanced. You see all societies, you accept it. You accept societies, you accept the plurality of peoples, races, skin colors, genders, right? You don't hate men if you're a woman or woman if you're a man. Ages, you don't hate people, you really integrate. Different religions, you all see them as part of God's plan. It's high level, right? This is serious work. You see God's plan of harmony in the world. This is where you don't compete in society, you create. You're on a completely different paradigm. Do you see? That's what they're seeing. The orange geniuses, on their best days, they're seeing this. And they're
Mm.
going to bring this down to us. And that's what's happening here. But this is where real inner life begins. When you do that, you actually awaken to your inner life. This is where spirituality really starts. When you start to see harmony in the world, and that there is a unity which must be above this harmony, this is where you start to become conscious of God, of truth. You, you know it's there. You know it's up there. Maybe you haven't experienced it yet, but you know that there is this absolute principle of harmony. You're attaining to abstraction. You're good with different perspectives. You might still have, your society. You practice, your value system, your religion, but you're not triggered by other people, which is really hard. You see people whom you just don't get along with, but you're not triggered by them. You accept them. These are the real leaders of humanity. You think of people like, like Gandhi, people like that. They're doing something transcendental, which most people can't even conceive. They're really healing wounds. The real, like, genius level artists, there are genius artists over here. These are like the actors you see, the musicians you see. These are the people you don't see, right? They actually go beyond society. They're like the Picassos, people who are doing something so profound. Unfortunately, they're neglected by society. Like William Blake. You think he's
Mm.
insane because he's at a higher level of being. Why? What did I say? Those who are orange can see green, which is mind-blowing to those who are blue. Now imagine what those who are green are seeing. This is crazy. This is extremely high consciousness. It's so high that the tragedy is people can't even understand this. Society like cannot understand this. That's not even a question. But even clever people can't understand this. Only those who are tier orange, and as we said, we're struggling, Seb and I, to think of orange people. It's really rare. But only those people could even see these people and don't understand them, they'll just appreciate them. So these are like the real deep self-help geniuses, those who really understand the human condition. They're really working for peace and harmony. Those who see transcendental art. What do they worship? They worship the idea of harmony. They worship life and earth. Okay. I mean, anything you want to add here, Seb?
I'm just wondering if we can think of any examples.
Oh God. I think those who most people consider spiritual leaders would be here.
Hmm.
Like spiritual leaders are here in a sense.
Yes, yes. I feel like a person who certainly has a place here, but maybe even parts of them in the next, would be Sadhguru as someone.
Sadhguru, Alan Watts.
Rupert
Yeah,
Spira.
yeah, great examples. Yeah,
Maybe the very best part of Deepak Chopra.
yeah, these are good examples.
David Hawkins,
Mhm.
potentially.
And like really good leaders, which come once in a 10,000 years.
Mm.
But there are some leaders, right, who are actually geniuses and really love their people and do the best thing. It's like real leaders of humanity. Again, I struggle to think, but I'll come up with more examples. Real altruists, maybe someone, again, like the best parts of Mother Teresa, these
Oh,
types of
I had
people.
her exactly that, man. I had her in mind.
Yes. Yeah, people have really completely sacrificed themselves for this type of work. So I think even maybe today, the real like best saints and sages of religious traditions, and they're usually not well known. They can't be for reasons we just explained. But like the real like, Christians and Muslims and etc., Buddhists who are really doing God's work, they're going to be here. Unfortunately, it's just such a high level of advancement that people can't see this. Hmm. But this is tier green, or stage green, I should say, actually. Stage green. Yeah. Any further comments?
No, I'm happy to move forward.
The next two stages, I'm going to be honest, this is really advanced. This is probably the highest that you can conceive. The next stage gets really advanced to the extent that we can't really speak about it. I'll speak about this one over here, but this is an ego trap. You're going to think that, okay, yellow, yeah, I'm going to go yellow. Look, in all honesty, if you really want to take this work seriously, you don't even have an idea what yellow is. Not just that, you have no way to even know what yellow is. If you can acknowledge that, you're actually doing really good work, and you will come to know yellow. It's what Socrates said. All I know is that I do not know.
Mm.
You have to understand that this is literal genius. I mean literal genius, which is so genius. It's one in a billion, one in a trillion, maybe.
Perhaps we could frame it as enlightened genius.
Yes, I don't just mean genius, right? Einstein, maybe Einstein would be, honestly, he's probably orange, right? Genius is orange to a large degree. Scientists, philosophers, most of them are orange, maybe touching on green, but this is spiritual genius.
Mm.
I'll tell you one who is yellow, very strong yellow, is Aristotle.
Mm.
And that's why, again, I say, you have to be, you need to actually be a genius to be stage yellow. And if you become stage yellow, if God grants you this gift, God will gift you with genius. You actually become a genius when you become stage yellow. Your brain literally changes. This is when one awakens to consciousness itself. One awakens to the system of systems, not just as a horizontal hierarchy of all these different ways of being, but one comprehends the absolute synthetic unity, that though there are infinitely many systems, there is a system of systems. One really understands being and real intuitive experiential understanding of ontology, first principles, foundationalism. One understands that reality is holographic, a fractal, it's infinite, it's nesting upon itself, nesting upon itself, nesting upon itself, but that it is an absolute oneness of being emerging into infinite multiplicity. This is Platonism, Platonic understanding at the deepest level, and I mean like Sufism, I mean Ibn Arabi, Plato, I mean the Advaita Vedanta. This is stage yellow. Most philosophy is not yellow. That is yellow. Real understanding of reality. And unfortunately, it doesn't even exist. Like academia is orange at best, mostly blue, some of orange. Can you understand why it doesn't even exist in their minds? You can't go to Harvard or Cambridge and explain this. Like you can't. It doesn't even exist in them. You can maybe go into green, right? Again, maybe the best part of Ken Wilber's philosophy is like really green. Maybe literally touching on yellow. But even that type of philosophy, it's not accepted. It can't be known. This is what stage yellow is. It's spiritual enlightened genius, system builders, Plato, maybe Hegel, those types of people, people who have complete gnosis of reality. It's ontological logic. And, well, why is it important? It's important because understanding comes down from them. People who have yellow consciousness, they create systems, real systems, which we inherit. That is why this is important. And why can they do that? It's because they touch, right? Stage yellow people can see something higher and hopefully see how mind-blowingly high this is. Already, this is crazy. The highest level, maybe not the highest, but practically speaking, is turquoise. And I can't even explain this. It's God. This is Christ consciousness. This is Christ consciousness, Buddha consciousness, Muhammad consciousness. It's the level of literal enlightened sages and prophets who found religions, like real religions and spiritual traditions, where God is God Himself, the absolute, no image of God, but literal being itself. People who can see the oneness of being, those who literally speak to God. That is stage turquoise. It is to behold the transcendental and inconceivable. It is to have mystical insights which are simply beyond articulation. But because you have incorporated stage yellow and are a literal genius, they can speak it forth. And that's why there is religious scripture, the Bible, the Quran, right? Because it can be filtered through infinite consciousness of stage yellow. And as for tiers, you can guess this is tier 2, or what I prefer to call the higher tier. These are the lower tiers of consciousness. When you move from green to yellow, it's 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 different. You're no longer a human being. You are no longer a human being. Let us leave this here then. And there's a lot more to say about this, of course. But this is an initial map that you can use and that we can use to talk about the levels of consciousness and the development of consciousness more fully. What's to come is actually a new model entirely, but that will come a bit later on. So before we head off, I'll ask Brother Seb if he has any final comments about anything we've said.
Final comments will be yes, be very careful about this last stage. Faison made a very wise comment about not ego rushing to the higher stages, the higher tier two. This applies so much to this final stage that when you experience it, you just remain silent. I think mystical insights beyond articulation is very apt and very accurate here. So yes, just rest here if you get here, enjoy it. But yes, do not uh, don't worry about trying to communicate it. No one will understand. Even you won't understand, but your spirit will. So yes, just be mindful of that.
Thank you so much, Seb. And maybe just to end with what you just said, don't worry about communicating it. Because look, society is stage blue. Forget about this stuff, man. Society is stage blue at best. Unfortunately, in many places in the world, it's gone red. It's just there's wars, it's red or even below red, right? Look, people can't understand that anywhere close to it. At best, they can maybe understand orange. That's the highest that they can go to. They can appreciate, actors and entrepreneurs. Even then, they get it wrong. They appreciate the wrong types, those who are scamming people, the fake, and this is a sad story, but they're not even doing it properly, right? People are worshipping fake stage orange, which is red, masquerading as orange. So don't worry, man. Don't worry about if you're higher level, if you are attaining higher insights, you're interested in spirituality. If you are, you will be experiencing some of green, right? Just know that if you feel alone, you feel isolated, misunderstood, it is necessary. It is necessary. It has to be that way because that is literally what higher consciousness is. It is being an alien. It is being alienated from the masses. If you choose the path of truth, you will be alienated. You will be different. You will most likely be hated and shunned. But there are yet spiritual communities, and we are here for you to the best that we can do. And if you want any further work with us, feel free to reach out directly. Otherwise, let's leave this here, and we look forward to seeing you all next time.